Julie Gunlock of the Independent Women's Forum, who joins us on the show right now. Julie, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Happy New Year to you. Merry Christmas. I'm trying to think of when we talked briefly last week for our Bespoke Parenting podcast. I've heard, by the way, that the word bespoke has now jumped the shark, so we might have to think about renaming.
No.
I know.
Stinks, man. It's all because of the Bespoke Parenting Hour. That's why.
That's right.
And I thought I was so clever. When I proposed
You were
that.
at the time, and then everybody else has just jumped on the bandwagon, apparently.
Right. Oh well.
Oh well.
Right.
So how was New Year's? Did you let the kids stay up till midnight?
We did. The kids stayed up till midnight, and the husband stayed up till midnight, but I fell asleep. So I'm so old and embarrassing. I was asleep by 10. So I couldn't even stay up till like 11.
Were you sick?
No, just tired, So, and I was sleeping. I was not passed out. I was.
Well,
sleeping.
I figured as much, but wow.
Yeah. So I'm old. I just, honestly, but I will tell you, if I'm binge watching a show, I can stay up, but I don't know. And I'm so mad that I missed Mariah Carey's Total Disaster. Now that was worth staying up for. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We had the TV on, but I think at that point we had 6 children in the living room that were yelling and screaming because, they were so ready. So I didn't hear it, but I just happened to check social media and saw that, this was awful. And yeah, I mean, I guess, I don't know. As far as, embarrassing celebrity moments, it was no Ashley Simpson, I got to say.
That's true. Good point. And I mean, I think that's why they booked Mariah Carey. She's sort of become, she's pretty reliable when it comes to, these disastrous performances. So I think that was ratings gold for them. So
I'm sure it was. Not that if you were awake, if you weren't asleep at the time.
An old fogey.
Man, I thought I was bad last until like 1 o'clock in the morning, but I feel pretty good about myself now.
You should. It's totally embarrassing. Yeah. Oh well.
So what are the nanny state resolutions for 2017, Julie? Where are they going to come after us this year?
Oh, soda taxes. I'm sure you saw that. Great. There's sort of on Twitter, there's a picture going around of a guy's receipt. He ordered some Propel water, and it was a $5. It was $5 of water, and there was a $3 tax on it. That's Philly's soda tax, and that's just really shocking. That's unbelievable. I mean, his total came to $8, and it was because of a $3 soda tax on a $5 bottle of water. So that's what we're going to see a lot of. The dominoes are definitely falling. Other cities are going to be proposing these soda taxes. And again, Philly's is the largest ever. So we're going to see cities now proposing very large soda taxes. And, more restrictions on things like vaping, more restrictions on what kind of ingredients can go into food. I mean, obviously Trump is coming in and we may see a rollback on these things, but it does not change the fact that these are big, especially soda taxes, they're big revenue raisers. And, we've talked on the show before, look, a lot of politicians, they get addicted to money. They can't, cut their budgets. They can't stay within their budgets. And so they just try to find new revenue streams, and soda taxes is the popular one. So I predict that 2017 is going to be a big year for soda taxes.
I hope you're not right, but I have a feeling that you are right. And I saw that picture. Selena Zito was tweeting this out and said, no wonder there was a revolt in Pennsylvania over this. I mentioned this earlier in the show. Like, so if you live in the Philly suburbs, or if you live near the Philly suburbs, you're probably going to drive a few blocks out of your way,
right?
Will.
Yeah, and I mean, this is why these taxes are regressive. They hurt the poor the most because people, who live in the inner city often cannot get out of the city or not going to drive out of the city. Or, like a lot of people who commute, right? They might, they might work in the city, but they live outside of the city. But really, a lot of poor people, they cannot get out of the city to take advantage of the lower prices on these things. So it does really harm the poor the most. They end up paying the most of these taxes. This is the really frustrating thing. I think this is really critical that people understand this. These taxes do not work. They do not in any way move the needle on obesity. That is the whole reason that these soda taxes are put in place. I mean, that's what these politicians like to say, right? Oh, I care so much about obesity that I'm going to impose this soda tax because, it's not the pepperoni pizza you're eating or the Philly cheesesteak. It's the soda, okay? And so they impose these taxes. But the real reason they do this is, again, to line their coffers. They are addicted to money, and so it's yet another revenue raiser. And when you break it down, the money doesn't even go to it's not like it's building parks or bike paths or walking paths. No, it's like infrastructure projects and pensions. So again, these things. The really sad thing is when you're paying that amount of money, $3 in taxes on a $5 drink. Just remember, the voters need to remember, they don't do a thing to reduce obesity.
Well, this was also something that I had mentioned earlier, because as I understand it, like this tax in Philadelphia, for instance, does not apply to your really sugary coffee drinks at Starbucks.
Oh, no,
The desserts at Bookbinders in Philadelphia, they're not additionally taxed, right?
Alcohol is not additionally taxed.
Alcohol is not. Okay. All right. What about just like cake? If I wanted to go get a piece of pie somewhere.
No. I mean, this is, it's just, I at one point I'd written on this last year at some point, and I said, when is the Philly mayor going to start taxing cheesesteaks, Geno's, right? When are we going to? I mean, let's tax everything with let's set a limit, right? And eventually they're going to start doing things like everybody has a calorie allotment, and then anything you eat above that is going to be taxed. I mean, it's just insane. You don't know. If you look at the research, look at the obesity research, it's really fascinating. It turns out, that people that are overweight, guess what they drink? They drink diet soda. They don't even drink the full sugar soda stuff and look, I totally get this. I'm not going to waste my calories in soda. They want to eat their calories, okay? So people that are overweight tend to drink non-calorie soda, okay, or water, okay? They just don't drink a lot of full sugar drinks, and so ostensibly this tax is trying to reduce the obesity rate. So you're trying to make the substance less attractive from a money standpoint to those that are overweight, and yet you're not even targeting those people. And also if you actually look at the demographics of who drinks soda, I'm talking like these monster, huge 7-Eleven jumbo cups of soda. It's boys, 18 to 24-year-olds, okay? The same ones that are responsible for the crappy movies we have in every year, right? What's that? Something, I don't know, it's the cars racing around. I don't know. It's like there's like 12 of them. I mean, these are the people that are drinking these jumbo sodas. So, you're taxing these, this particular demographic, basically teenagers, for this, for obesity, which doesn't even, it doesn't really even hit the target demographic you're trying to reduce obesity in. So, anyway, it's all folly. It's silly, but I do think we'll see more of these measures throughout the country.
Our friend Lenore Skenazy over at Free Range Kids had a piece, I think she posted yesterday, about Steven Pinker, who's a professor at Harvard, and he gave a talk on when legitimate movements go overboard. And this was kind of interesting because he talked about the child safety movement.
Yeah.
And, look, it's great that we don't have 9-year-olds working in coal mines anymore. And it's fantastic that we've, adopted car seats. But as Lenore says, when these movements achieve their main goals but insist on acting as if today's dangers and insults are on par with those of the past, that's when you run into problems, right?
Right.
And so it doesn't matter that kids aren't working in coal mines anymore. What matters is that kids are still playing on playgrounds, Julie, that do not have rubber shavings.
Right, but you see that's just fascinating. It's such a fascinating kind of theory and concept, and I just because you can apply that to everything. Look at the feminists. right? The mainstream feminists right now, National Organization of Women, right? These the sort of big feminist organizations, right? They act like women have no achievements, right? And have not in any way improved their lot in life. I mean, I did a talk on prohibition just a couple of weeks ago where I was talking about, because it was repeal day, right? And I was talking about, we need to remember how bad women had it at the turn of the century, we're talking 20th century, okay? In 1900, women had no property rights. If they were married and had a job, they had no rights to their own earnings. Their husband, it could take all of her earnings. Okay, she couldn't own property. She had no right to her children in a divorce. Right? I mean, it was awful. It was really hard to be a woman. Right? And so you have these groups that they don't want to sort of give up their status as victims because they can't admit any advancements or any wins or anything positive. So. I think that's kind of interesting because you can apply it to a whole bunch of different, different sort of movements.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, and he does in his talk about the political correctness and how this stems from again a good idea in a time in which Americans were not all treated equally. But now it gets to the point of, again, unconscious microaggressions. And you better watch what you say, Julie, because every time you open your mouth, you're pissing somebody off, right? And that'll lead to retribution. You're right. In fact, I think to me, the fact that this applies to so many different areas kind of tells me that despite how outrageously outraged we are all of the time, we live in a pretty good time. Right? I mean, can you think immediately of like a better time to be alive than right now?
No, and honestly, and in some ways, like, we on the right, we all sort of criticize political correctness and stuff. And it's interesting. I had a conversation with my sister who is not quite as conservative as I am. And, she actually had a good point. She said, but, the world is a nicer place, right? In a lot of ways it is. It's more civilized in some ways. And so, there are some, again, these movements start off, head right or heart right rather, and then they go so wrong and so extreme. And again, you're right. It's like searching for the little way in which I can be offended, and I mean, it really leads to me being very cautious with the kids. Like this election, I told my kids, like, don't talk about that stuff at school. Be careful who you talk to school, at school about, because I was worried for them. I was worried that they would hear me and my husband say something and then repeat it at school, and it would, I worry. I still do worry about them. But again, you're right. It's there are good and bads to these movements, but clearly many of them have gone too far.
Julie Gunlock with the Independent Women's Forum. I appreciate you joining us on the program today. It is always good talking with you.
Always fun.
All right. Well, I'm sure 2017, there's going to be no shortage of stuff for you to write about, unfortunately.
No, God, no. I'm very busy already. And yes, hopefully I'll have a few pieces out next week.
All right. Well, we look forward to talking to you again very soon. And in the meantime, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Julie Gunlock. You can find her on Twitter at @JGunlock. You can find probably the best repository of Julie's writings would be at iwf.org, the Independent Women's Forum.